Welcome. I'm your host, Paula Scatoloni, the founder of Transformative Harmonics, a podcast that offers listeners a synthesis of ancient wisdom and modern science. Hello, I'm Paula Scatoloni. Welcome back to another episode of Transformative Harmonics. In December, I feel like it's important to create a little space in this podcast to talk about the importance of slowing down. In the winter months, we are invited to slow down. And so this episode will provide you with some thoughts about that and also a chance to engage in some sound experience with me, a very brief one, just to give you a chance to feel the benefits of using sound and healing together. So before we start, I would like to invite you to begin this process of slowing down. Often when we consume, as I do as well, we're moving from one thing to the next, and we don't often take the time to stop and ingest and digest what we're consuming before we move on to the next thing. And again, I'm subject to this as well. So it really is a practice, and I'm practicing it with you as I teach it. So we're going to slow down together as we enter into this podcast episode and just give ourselves a chance to begin to get quiet and still, which is also something that we are not used to doing unless we are exhausted and we move into a state of more of a shutdown or collapse. We tend to run really, really high and really, really fast or collapse. And there's not a lot of the in-between. And that's what we're building in my programs and with sound. We're building that in-between. So taking a moment, and I'm going to invite you to look around and to notice what you are in relationship with at this moment. So relationship with means, what am I connecting to? Am I operating in a siloed type of way? Or when I bring my attention to, let my eyes kind of float around and find something that feels good, something I'd want to be in relationship with. And let myself just begin to settle in to relationship with this particular object or thing that I might be looking at from across the room or out the window. And bringing our awareness to the idea that we are in relationship all of the time. That everything around us is sentient and alive. Often we operate in a way that is very siloed and very disconnected. So as you do that, I invite you to maybe bring in a second sensory system. Maybe you've used the eyes and we want to move to the body or the tactile system and notice what your body is in relationship with at this moment. Maybe it's a pillow. Maybe it's a chair. Maybe it's the floor. So beginning to notice the quality of which you are allowing yourself to be held and supported, if you're sitting, by that which you're in relationship with. If you're standing, you can simply notice what's around you and underneath you. And paying attention to the invitation to come into relationship. As we do this, you might begin to feel your nervous system start to settle. And then a spontaneous breath may occur. Even as I do this, my breath is changing. So, as we've been talking on the podcast, quite a few guests have been mentioning and talking about this collective shift in consciousness that many of us are in the middle of. And so I'm going to say a few brief things about that today in reference to this idea of settling and listening. So in the awakening, what are we awakening to? We are awakening, many of us that are on that journey, to understanding ourselves through our higher consciousness. So beyond the consciousness of how we've been functioning as a collective up until this point. And much of that consciousness has to do with states of fear and disconnection and separation and victimization and perpetration, and these dynamics that have been going on for centuries. And we are all basically trapped in a big trauma vortex with each other, repeating patterns over time, over and over again. And that era has come to an end. And so many people around 2020, and then before that it was 2012, began to awaken to the fact that these patterns no longer need to be part of their lives, that there's another way of living. And they began a shift from the logical brain and the use of reason to moving into the heart, where we have a broader array of emotions that include compassion and kindness, that include patience, that include perspective and interconnectivity. And some people started this path because they intentionally started it, and others were nudged into this path by an event maybe that occurred, or maybe there was aspects of their life that were no longer serving them or feeling good. They weren't feeling alive or engaged in life. Maybe they were aging and questioning life. Why am I here? What is my purpose? Or maybe a medical condition kicked off this deeper inquiry about how they were functioning and what they were doing with their lives, and whether that was really in alignment with their deeper purpose. For me, when I speak publicly on podcasts, my catalyst came from a traumatic event of grief that resulted in a spiritual experience in which I became more cognizant of other realms of reality. And that was the beginning of the journey 7 years ago. And once the journey kicks off, we can't turn it off. You're on the ride. And so generally when people start, they will start to seek out and find answers for some of the questions of what's happening. And they piece things together along the way, and nothing is really revealed all at once. It comes in little breadcrumbs, and you follow the breadcrumbs, and then the next piece is revealed until you reach a point where things begin to click and come together, and you get a deeper sense of what's happening and why. And your consciousness shifts. And a lot of what's shifting is this drop into what people might be calling heart-centered consciousness, unity consciousness, the marriage of the masculine and the feminine. So it has layers to it, and that's why the journey can take some time, because each layer we go through has a lot of learning, inner learning that we engage in. But these are some of the ways people might start the journey. More nuanced and subtle ways might be you begin to wake up at 4 a.m. every morning, not knowing why. Your dreams start to become really intense and really vivid. You may start to have abilities that have been dormant for some time, and they're waking up. They might be the abilities to see through your visual channel, or to hear through the auditory channel, or just a burst of creativity that is coming. You don't know where it's coming from. What's so interesting is these awakening experiences come in waves. And so, we're about to, at the end of December, have another wave where we'll see many people beginning to awaken. So as they awaken and as they make their way to my program, there's a few really basic things that I start with. One is to begin to find the ways to slow down in your life so you can create some space for curiosity and for the questioning and the ability to sit with what you're experiencing to allow the process to unfold. So if you're going, and every minute is jam-packed, there's not a lot of time to hear what is coming up for you, what information is being provided from your higher wisdom. And there's not space for listening to the creative insights that may be coming as your pathways open. And there may be information about where to move, or something that needs to shift in your life, or a change happening in your business. These bursts of intuition and of deeper wisdom need time and space for you to listen. So finding the ways to slow down, that can be 15 minutes in the morning, or half an hour in the morning, half an hour at night, or a pocket of time in the day where you just create some quiet for yourself. You can sit quietly in nature if you're that type of person. You can light a candle and create an altar if you're that type. You can grab a pen and paper and start to just free write and be open. You can also take up practices that cultivate space and quieting, like movement or breath or walking can do that. Certainly ones people are already engaged in might be meditation or dance or yoga. But something that draws you inward to be quiet and to be able to hear. It may even be something creative, as long as you are in that state of deep listening. And in that state of deep listening, once we drop in, then we can begin to bring our curiosity and our openness, saying yes to, yes, I want to hear, I want to know, I want to see, I want to feel any deeper wisdom that's ready to reveal itself to me. And that may come through an insight, an aha moment. That may come through words that you hear, maybe one word or a few words. For me and many of the people that I know, it comes through song lyrics, which is kind of fun and playful. It may come through, if you are a visionary type of person, it may come through a visual image that you see, right? An image of something that you're meant to do, or that you might happen if you are curious and pay attention. So you're listening with all your senses during these times of quietness and stillness for the messages to come from what I call your embodied wisdom as they percolate up and begin to slowly guide you through the awakening process. Now, certainly there's programs and places to go that will support you as well. And there's so many right now. And if you decide to create some space and drop in and spend time in a community, picking one that feels good to you. So if you're a mover and you want to do it through movement, engage in a movement program that's going to support you in turning inward. If you are someone who likes somatics and tracking the body, there is plenty of programs that will teach you how to cultivate the capacity to stay present in the body. And then if you are one who prefers sound, because you're not a meditator, I'm not a meditator to just sit and meditate, but I will spend a lot of time with music, whether that music has lyrics or doesn't. It tends to help me drop into a deep state of flow, creativity, meditation, and insight. So all these types of programs are available, and it's just finding one that feels right for you. And doing things in community right now, I find, is super helpful for so many reasons. One is this consistency of having a place. Coming out of COVID, we were all pretty disconnected from one another. So creating the containers for us to come together in community again feels important. It also feels important because as a society, we've lost that a lot immensely, right? To be in community, what it means to sit in community, what it means to share space, to share wisdom, to have someone hold space, not as a teacher who's an authority, but someone who knows how to hold space in balance. And then community brings back the concept of ritual. And ritual is also something that in our more indigenous ways of knowing from centuries past, we knew how to bring people together in ritual and create space for turning inward. It's just simply what we did. And so many of us are cultivating and learning how to do that again. We might be learning from those that are already embedded in that, who are wisdom keepers from indigenous perspectives. We may be people who've held circle before. I held circle for 12 years in Hawaii, but it was more of something we did behind the scenes. We didn't publicly hold circle. We did it behind the scenes as a community of women for 13 years. I think it's still going now, but when I was in it, it was 13 years. Every new moon, we got together, and it was a time of turning inward with one another. And so this is something that is built in. We know how to do it. And some of our remembering processes are centered around remembering that we know how to gather in tribe. So those are things to start you off. And then one of the last things that I teach quite a bit, especially when in your awakening process, something challenging is happening in your life. And there's a tendency for us to want to project outward when something challenging is happening and to say, why is this happening to me? And I have even done that. It's something that I work on. Changing our framework in the awakening process, we invite ourselves instead to say, how is this happening for me? Now, this tiny shift in how we phrase this is something that I used my entire life, not knowing that I was using it. In the moments where things were the darkest, in the moments where I didn't really know what the outcome was going to be or how I was going to end up, things were very bleak. These were the moments where that phrase came in. And now I hear different people also using that. And I thought, wow, I've been using that since I was a kid. So there's something about it that helps us to reposition ourselves out of a victim mindset into a mindset of, we are here having an experience in Earth School, and we are being stretched through our emotions. And this experience is stretching us in 100 different ways to grow. And if we can hold it in that framework and bring our embodied presence to ourselves during it, it allows the situation to turn from something that is traumatic into something that is transformative. And I'm not saying that's easy. I'm not saying I'm an expert in it, but it is a tool I've used throughout my life. And right now, I'm listening and seeing a lot of people use that tool as well. So it feels like something that's fairly anchored into the awakening experience to share with you. So this last piece is an opportunity for you to sit with me for a moment and to turn inward. I'm going to play some music and invite you into a short meditation and allow you to have an experience and a feeling of what it's like to be in relationship, in resonance, and to turn your attention inward to be open to what may emerge. So if you are in a place where you are able to slow down and stop to do this piece, go ahead and position yourself and get comfortable. If you're not, I welcome you to pause and do this piece at another time where you're not operating a vehicle or in motion, because that can affect the experience. So for those that are sitting, my invitation is to begin to bring your awareness. You can open or close your eyes. I tend to close my eyes because it allows me not to have to see other things while I'm trying to turn inward. So closing your eyes and beginning to bring your awareness to the body and answering this question or asking it out loud to yourself. How do I know I'm here and not someplace else? So again, I'm going to draw you to your sensory system. The sensory system helps us to ask and answer that question. Maybe it's the way I'm sitting in the chair. Maybe it's my relationship to gravity. Maybe it's my awareness of what I hear around me, the sounds and voices. Maybe it's the smells. If my eyes are open, maybe it's what I see. How do I know I'm here? So we're calling ourselves back out of the mind, out of the past, out of the future, into the present moment. And with this, I invite you to use the breath and begin to take a couple of deep breaths as you breathe in, focusing on the concept of ingestion. We ingest life, we ingest breath, we ingest sound. And ingestion has a lot to do with receiving. And then we digest and release. Ingest, digest, release. And the release of the breath and the exhale, for me, has a lot to do about letting go. What am I willing to let go of? So a few breaths here, practicing receiving and then letting go. And you can open your mouth if you want to extend your exhale, or simply do it out of your nose. But sometimes with the exhale, it can be nicer to use the mouth and even add a sigh or a sound, right? To hear your own voice and to begin to filter and move out anything that might be frenetic or busy inside. And the breath begins to help us to slow down, to find our center and to land. And then as we land, I invite you to ground. And grounding has much to do about our relationship with gravity and feeling ourselves connected to the earth and to the Schumann resonance. So my invitation, if your eyes are closed, is to imagine if there was a door that went from the back of your head and the start of your spine, and you were to walk through that door, and there's a staircase that is the spine, and you follow that staircase down the spine. It's like a winding path, and begin to move your awareness deeper and deeper down. When you get to the hips, you slowly start to spread out and find the tailbone. The tailbone is like a fern. It's upside down and it unfurls. And as it unfurls, you slide down the bottom of that into the legs. The legs are like tree trunks and tree roots, and they start to spread down, reaching out of your feet deep into the earth. And so you travel with them, these roots, down, 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 until you reach another door. As this door opens, then you find yourself walking out into the middle of the natural world. This place may be familiar to you or something that you're just seeing now or feeling now. For me, it tends to be a little shaded, kind of wet and warm, little sunlight, but it has the smells of the natural world and the sights and the sounds. And so giving yourself a moment to just feel what it's like to be in this space, connected to the natural world as you are a part of the natural world. And so we're coming back into that rhythm and awareness. And then from this spot, I invite you to find a space to sit as you listen to the music, a quiet place that you can lean up against a tree or find a spot to lay down. And as you do, I invite you to bring your awareness to the center of your chest. This, for me, is the place where we connect with our embodied wisdom. As we move into the chest, we set an intention to connect to our deeper, wiser self, a part of us that is beyond space and time. And it's in this center point that another doorway can open, and we begin to feel ourselves beyond matter and tap into our creativity, our wisdom. And within that realm, you may have a deeper connection already to the world beyond, or you may start to cultivate that in these types of experiences. And so inviting curiosity, a willingness to be open, and an intention that anything that happens in this journey is for your best interest, right? And in that way, we set an intention for this to be a positive experience. If at any point you feel uncomfortable, you simply open your eyes. And then as you do this, I'd ask to continue to stay focused. I'm going to turn the music on. does my inner wisdom want to show me today? to an end, staying in this spot in the natural world. Finding the door or window that you walk through to arrive in the natural world, and slowly stepping through that again to find the spine, making your way up the spine, until you reach the back of your head. And another door or window opens, and you are back in the place where you started. Okay. So hopefully you have transitioned. You may have experienced, as you come back, present moment, you may have experienced that as just deeply meditative. You may have experienced that as very energetic. You may have experienced that through visuals. You may have seen visuals. You may have experienced emotions. Generally, in these types of transmissions, there is a wide range of things that can happen. And so allowing yourself to move slowly and create some space for integration. If you did have some things occur, insights occur, emotions, and giving yourself just a few moments to shift back. And certainly if you have water around after using sound or energy, we tend to have people drink at least one glass of water if you can, to just try to keep things moving through you. Time in nature can also be helpful. So staying with this idea of turning inward and receiving the answers from inside, as you can see from this experience, if it did occur, it may have not. Sound can be a beautiful way of combining it with energy and turning inward to connect more deeply to this embodied wisdom or higher states of consciousness. So sound provides us with a very embodied experience of journeying inwards. So we don't leave the body, we turn and go into the body with sound. It also supports the journey itself as the visual channels open. If you are a visual person, that the sound can facilitate and support you deepening into the image channel. And then certainly there can just be a softening into the right brain and the parasympathetic more and more with certain sounds and frequencies. So this was a very basic way to show you how I might use sound. And we use a lot different sound in our programs, combined with the transmissions to facilitate inner journeys and to help you cultivate your own wisdom and clarity when you're on the path to awakening, so that the answers really are going to come from inside of you. Although there can be resources and ways to gather support on the outside, we would like to invite you in this community to develop practices that help you to find the answers from within yourself. And I think that's what makes us a little different. We will be providing support and things to consider and direct you towards all kinds of supports and things that will complement. But we're not going to give a prescription or tell you 5 steps of how to do this and 10 steps how to do that. It is more of a journey inward at Transformative Harmonics. And because of that, it takes time. It takes time and space for you to settle in and get comfortable with not having all the answers but being supported along this journey. So thank you for spending time in this episode to treat yourself to some of these questions and to the sound experience if you did listen. I hope this gives you something else to think about or consider. Feel free to pass it along and let others know, or yourself, to check out our website. We do have many options that are now open to create the spaces for this type of exploration for those that are hearing the call and are ready.